Hello, welcome to the fourth week of Science Applied to Design. In this week's lesson, you will reflect on the limits of science and the scientific method, as well as compare it with the design process. Science uses a very specific working approach, named the scientific method, and regardless the scientific area and field of research, it is composed of a succession of well-defined general steps. Every scientific method has a purpose of study, so it starts with a question or an observation. When the purpose is well defined, we go through a phase of research to analyse the existing knowledge of that field, typically using research publication, but also other sources of information. The previous knowledge, which is commonly named as the state of the art in that area, will be used to formulate at least one scientific hypothesis, which somehow predicts the answer to a previously defined problem. This hypothesis, or set of hypotheses, will now be tested through the implementation of a scientific experiment designed to prove or disprove each hypothesis. During the experiment, everything is tracked and recorded in order to allow further analysis of all the data collected and to produce a result or achieve a conclusion. In summary, and using the definition from Oxford English Dictionary, a scientific method consists in systematic observation, measurement, and experiment, and the formulation, testing, and modification of hypotheses. In general, this method is very logical based and subtly assumes that if it is not measurable, so it is not verifiable. In abstract terms, we can almost say that the scientific process tells us that if it is not measurable, so it is not real. These frontiers established by the scientific method limit science and our understanding. The limits of science have been debated by scientists in different areas. For example, in 1931, Austrian logician Kurt Göbel shocked the world of mathematics and philosophy by showing that there are mathematical truths which simply can't be proved. Another example, also based in mathematics, are the limits found in computation, as for example, the physical and practical limits of computation or data storage, which can be performed without a given amount of mass, volume, or energy. Other things that science is not capable of doing are, for example, making moral judgments or aesthetic judgments. Moving now to the field of design, and as you know, the design process is generally constituted by the steps of defining the problem, collecting related information, idealing possible solutions, prototyping them, at first in a lo-fi version, collecting feedback by testing the prototypes, and then iterating and improving. Unlike the scientific method, which is all about predictability, certainty, and repeatability, the design process can be quite messy, unpredictable, and here the humanity of the participants is enormously important, which makes the process itself, but the output of the design process extremely unrepeatable. Because context in the forms of where, when, and who is performing the design activity is very important to design. Therefore, design can widely surpass the limits of science and what is measurable, because no data or information, only humans can make design decisions. Please watch and read all the resources available for this week, and search for examples where design surpass the limits of science. You can share your findings with the class at the discussion forum as well. We wish you a very nice study week.